Yaira, 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 yaira. Good yontif, everyone. Good yontif, everyone. People are still coming in, but that's no reason not to start singing. I invite you to open to page 127. Hashivenu we sing, return us as in days of old. Will you join George and I? We're going to sing this through once in unison and then in at least 3 parts. Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha, Benashuva, Benashuva, Chadesh, Chadesh, Yameinu Kekedem, Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha, Benashuva, Benashuva, Chadesh, Chadesh, Yameinu Kekedem, Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Kekedem. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Good yontif. It is wonderful to be back here. Or to be here, if you're here for the first time this yontif. I'm Rabbi Tom Goodhertz. I'm joined up here on the bima by George Cohen, who's serving as our chazan tonight, and we're both delighted to be here with you and to enter into these 24 or 25 hours of introspection and fasting and prayer. Some of you are already wearing talitot. I'm wearing a talit. George is wearing a talit. Traditionally, one doesn't wear a talit at night. That's because the biblical commandment says you shall look on the fringes and see them. So the rabbis ordained that we wear the talit normally during the day, the morning, the afternoon. But Yom Kippur is considered to be Yoma, a one long day, a day that begins at the night And because it is one long day of prayer and fasting, so if you wish to wear a talit and you did not get one, you may go back. We have them in the lobby, and you're invited to wear them and put on the, say the blessing and wear that talit. You know, it's something that we sometimes, in the midst of all these people and all these words, we sometimes need a little bit of space, just to feel that we are closed in on ourselves, and the talit sometimes can do that for us. I want to invite Sandy Shustek up to thank him, first of all, for being the chair of our ritual committee for a gazillion years, and also to make some announcements. We're looking for a replacement, by the way, somebody who can help him next year, to make some announcements.
Thank you, Rabbi. Erev Tov, good evening, and Gemar Tov. I'm Sandy Shustak, chairman of CBI's Ritual Practice Committee. I want to thank the clergy, staff, and members of the Trinity Presbyterian Church for allowing us to use these wonderful facilities this year, and for their assistance in ensuring that our services proceed as smoothly as possible. Special thanks to Lucas for serving as sound engineer, because we are live streaming. Thanks to the members of the Ritual Practice Committee, other volunteers, and to Anita Bowles and the CBI staff for tending to the many details and other arrangements required to put on these services. Bathrooms are located in the lobby area, so they're in that corner of the hallway. So if you go out, make a right and keep going right. Please note that there are several emergency exits from this room. Point them out, which I'm doing, and please only use them in case of emergency. Please note the one closest to you. However, once the service begins, please only use the exits at the back of the room. On a personal note, I would like to thank our leadership team of Rabbi Tom, Charlotte Crystal, Melissa Cohn, and Anita Bowles, who have helped shepherd us this year. Finally, the most important announcement. Please turn off your electronic devices, and thank you, and Gemar Chatima Tova.
So I invite us to turn in our prayer book, in our machzor, to page 10. Great. And before we light our candles, to read this kavanah, but the one at the top of the page, and also the one at the bottom. As we know, one of the mitzvot of Yom Kippur is to fast, but our tradition insists that if there's a reason, a medical reason, or other, that you need to eat, that is what you need to do. So we'll read the 5 disciplines of Yom Kippur. I'll read it, and then we'll read together for those who must eat. Withdrawing from physical nourishment, may I nourish my soul instead. Rejecting adornment, pampering, and vanity, may I turn my focus inward now. Stepping out of comfort and self-indulgent, may I stand this day more simply in humility. Denied the body's pleasure and release, may my desire be for insight, self-improvement, and the courage to change. And let's all read this together. Rofeh Chol Basar, healer of all living creatures, I thank you for the breath that is in me, for the community of Israel that lives for the possibilities of today and tomorrow. May my eating be as a fast. May it be dedicated to you, to teshuvah, to the renewal and restoral of my relationship to you, to others, and to myself. So going back to page 9, I want to invite Elisa Ball and family, whoever's coming up, to light our candles tonight on page 9, after which we'll sing together the Shehecheyanu, marking our arrival once again at this moment in time. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. So of course the next thing that we'll do is the prayer that gives this service its name, the Kol Nidre. The custom is to do the Kol Nidre 3 times through. Tonight, we're going to have the first of the Kol Nidre is going to be played for us on the cello by Beth Epstein, who I'll call up in just a moment. Then the second one will be led by George, and the third by me. But of course, it's not a solo. It's at any point where you are moved to sing slowly or loudly, I invite you to do so. What we'll do is also open the ark, and at that point the congregation will stand. Whenever the ark is open, we stand, and we will hold the Torahs for as long as we can in front of the ark as we do this Kol Nidre. So just a thought before it. Kol Nidre is a formula. It's a release from vows. It goes back to the time when it was believed that the words that we speak had a special power, and that words that were made as a promise or as a commitment retained that promise and commitment, and if for some reason we were not able to fulfill it, required a formula, a ritual releasing of ourselves from those vows. So what we want to do at this moment as we stand is to release ourselves as well from the things that we brought into this room this year, from the things that are still a part of the past that we no longer want to take into the new year, from our bad habits, from our sins, from our ways of being with ourselves and with others. And we ask for the strength to move into the new year, leaving these things behind. I want to read just a few words by Rabbi Alan Liu, and then we'll call everyone up. Every soul needs to express itself. Every heart needs to crack itself open. Every one of us needs to move from anger to healing, from denial to consciousness, from boredom to renewal. These needs did not arise yesterday. They are among the most ancient of human yearnings, and they are fully expressed in the pageantry and ritual of these days of awe, in the great journey that we make between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, from the new year to the Day of Atonement. So at this point, I want to invite Beth to come forward, and Gabby Laufer and Diane Hillman, who will open the ark, and Charlotte Crystal and Melissa Cohen, who will hold the Torahs. And we invite, and the Kol Nidre can be found on page 16. And we rise.
Or zaru ala tzadik, or zaru ala tzadik, u'lishrei lev, u'lishrei lev, u'lishrei lev shimcha. Or zaru ala tzadik, or zaru ala tzadik, u'lishrei lev, u'lishrei lev, u'lishrei lev simcha. Or zaru ala tzadik, or zaru ala tzadik, ולשרי לב, ולשרי לב, ולשרי לב שמחה. אור זרוע לצדיק, אור זרוע לצדיק, ולשרי לב, ולשרי לב, ולשרי לב שמחה. בישיבה של מעלה ובישיבה של מטה, על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל, אנו מתירים להתפלל עם העבריינים.
Page 18.
Kol Nidre Vesare Vacharame Vekoname Vechinuye Vechinuse Din darna Udeishtabana ודחרים נא ודסר נא על נפשתנה על נפשתנה מיום כיפורים זה עד יום כיפורים הבא עלינו לטובה. כולהון איחרת נא והון כולהון יהון שרן שביקים שביתים בטלים ומבוטלים לשרירים ולקיימים נדרה נא לנדרה וסרה נא להסרי ושבועתן על השבועון.
Kol Nidre ve'esarei ve'charamei ve'konamei ve'chinuyei ve'chinusei u'shavua din darna udeishtebana udeacharim na veda asarna al nafshatana miyom kippurim ze ad yom kippurim Abba aleinu letova kol hon icharat na vehon kol hon yehon shara shvikin shavitin betelin umevutalin לשררים ולקיימים נדרה נא לנדרה ואסרה נא לאסרי ושבועתנה לשבועות. We read all vows, resolves, and commitments, vows of abstinence and terms of obligation, sworn promises and oaths of dedication, that we promise and swear to God and take upon ourselves From this day of atonement until the next day of atonement, may it find us well. We regret them, and for all of them we repent. Let all of them be discarded and forgiven, abolished and undone. They are not valid, and they are not binding. Our vows shall not be vows. Our resolves shall not be resolves. And our oaths, they shall not be oaths. Page 20. All shall be forgiven, the entire community of Israel and the stranger who lives in their midst, for all have gone astray in error.
Slach na lavon ham hazeh kegodel chastecha v'chasher nasata lam hazeh mimitzrayim ve'yadena v'sham Emor, Vayomer Adonai, Salachti kidvarecha. Vayomer Adonai, Salachti kidvarecha. Vayomer Adonai, Salachti kidvarecha.
Page 22.
Baruch et Adonai Hamevora.
Baruch Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Leolam Vaed.
You may be seated. So our next prayer is about day and night, and about the fading of the day to the night. And one of the things that you can't see in the day is if your lights are still on in your car. So if you have a blue-gray Volvo UPX 3620, I invite you to go and turn off your lights so that we don't have to drive you home tonight. Thanks. Okay, take a deep breath. So we'll read together on page 25. This prayer for the evening. Together. Day and night are yours, creative spirit of the universe. The muted colors of twilight, the radiance of dawn. Yours are the spreading wings of light, the deepening shadows of darkness, and ever-changing drama. In the human heart, too, the struggle between darkness and light unfolds. From sunlit heights of generosity, the human heart sinks to the gloomy depths of selfishness. Although we fall, you give us strength to rise again. You call on those who hurt through word or deed to break free from wrongdoing and return to you. All who hear your call to goodness are embraced. All who reject emptiness and evil find acceptance from you. We come into your presence this night of Kol Nidre, aware that our shortcomings and weaknesses are many, yet encouraged by your promise of forgiveness. We choose freely the path of repentance, returning holiness to our lives and holiness to the world. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamari v'aravi. Page 26.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amhavta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu B'shachvenu u'v'kumenu Nasiach bechukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha U'v'mitzvotecha Le'olam va'ed Ki hem chayenu Ve'orech yameinu Uvahem negeh yomam v'layla Ve'ahavatcha al tasir mimenu li'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Ohev amo Yisrael.
Turning to page 28, we'll proclaim the Shema Yisrael tonight, and only on Yom Kippur, the second line, which usually we say privately to ourselves, we sing with a loud voice, proclaiming God's majesty forever and ever. Page 28.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Continue in the Hebrew on page 30, and then we'll read together in the English on the same page.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha vehayu hadvarim ha'ele asher Anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Veshinantam nevanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'v'shachbecha u'v'kumecha u'v'shartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot beinenecha Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha.
Together, you shall love Adonai, your God, with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Set these words which I command you this day upon your heart. Teach them faithfully to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be a symbol before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Take a moment silently to read the next few paragraphs of the Shema or the readings on the opposite side of the page. On page 40, we start 3 lines from the top of the page.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש נורא תהילות אוסף אלה מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים זה לי וענו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Page 43. When fears multiply and danger threatens, when sickness comes, when death confronts us, it is God's blessing of shalom that sustains us and upholds us, lightening our burden, dispelling our worry, restoring our strength, renewing our hope, reviving us. On page 42, let's read the first 3 lines of this blessing, and then we'll do the Khatima at the bottom of the page. Bless our sleep with peace, Adonai, and awaken us to life when we rise. With power sublime, spread over us your shelter of shalom, and through your wisdom, restore us, make us whole. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. On page 45. Ki beyom hazeh yichaper alechem, letaher etchem mikol chatotechem, lifnei Adonai titharu. For on this day atonement shall be made for you to purify you from all your wrongs, and pure you shall be in the presence of Adonai. We rise.
Yitgadol v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma divrach yirutei V'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'v'yomechon U'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael Magalav izman kari veimeru. Amen. Yehesh merab mevorach le'alam ule'al me'al maya yitbarach yitbarach ve'yishtabach v'yitbahar v'yitromam ve'yitnaseh Vitadar, vitale, vitalal, shemei dekudsharu, leila uleila, mikol birchata b'shirata, tushvechata v'nechemata, Damiran be'alma v'imeru. Amen.
We remain standing and we turn to page 46. In just a moment, we'll begin the Amidah together, the standing prayer. We're going to chant the first couple of these blessings together as a congregation, the first two, and then the Ufchein, special insertion that we do only in the high holidays. We'll chant, we'll daven that. Hopefully we have been reminded of the melody of Rosh Hashanah and can join together, first in the Hebrew, then the English, then the Hebrew. Since we're a congregation that has a lot of different practices, we invite you to do this Amidah whatever way is good for you. Some may choose to stand for the whole Amidah, others will do a few prayers and be seated. And of course, whenever we ask you to stand or sit, that's presuming that you are able to do so. I'm going to take advantage of the chair behind me to sit down a little bit, favor my knee a little bit. But really, whatever is your custom, standing, sitting, please do that. So I'm going to invite us, we're going to turn to page 46. And before we go into the Amidah, I'll invite you to close your eyes, and I want to read a small kavanah and intention. Like smoke above the altar, may a memory of us ascend and come before you. As Israel once came to you with offerings from the flock, so we bring to you the offerings of our mouth, not lip service, but heartfelt prayer. So the prophet taught, return, O Israel, to Adonai your God, for you have fallen because of your sin. Take words with you and return to Adonai. So accept the words we set before you, awkward and imperfect as they are, our hesitant questions, our corrosive doubts, and accept too our silences, our thoughts that rise in the stillness, our faith that coheres sometimes for but a fragile instant, and then dissipates like smoke above the altar. Page 46.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
Page 48.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'Nehem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava. Zachrenu lechaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chatvenu b'sefer hachayim, v'chatvenu b'sefer hachayim, lemancha Elohim chayim. Melech Ozer, Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah.
Page 50.
Ata gibor le'olam Adonai, mechayei metim ata rab lehoshia, morid hatal. Mechakel chaim bechesed, mechayei metim berachamim rabim, somech noflim berofei cholim, umatir asurim. Umekayem emunato li shehenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot umido melach. Melech mehemit umechaye umetzmiach Yeshua. Michamocha el harachamim, el harachamim. Zocher yitzurav, lechaim berachamim. V'ne'emar ata v'hachayot metim, baruch atah Adonai, mechayei hametim.
Amen. Page 53. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yihallucha selah. ובכן תן פחדך אדוני אלוהינו על כל מעשיך ואימתך על כל מה שבראת ויראוך כל המעשים וישתחוו לפניך כל הברואים ויעשו כולם אגודה אחת לעשות רצונך בלבב שלם כמו שידענו אדוני אלוהינו שהשלטון לפניך עוז בידיך וגבורה בימינך ושמך הנורא על כל מה שבראת. Page 54 in the English. And so, in your holiness, give your people the gift of honor. Bless with praise those who praise you. Bless with hope those who seek you. Give your believers a basis for faith. True happiness for the land of Israel. True joy in Jerusalem. May the sparks of David, your servant, soon grow bright enough for us to see, a beam of light in the darkness, a promise of perfection. Page 56. ובכן צדיקים יראו וישמחו, וישרים יעלוזו, וחסידים ברינה יגילו, ויולתה תקפוץ פיה, וכל הרישה כולה כעשן תכלה. כי תעביר ממשלת זדון מן הארץ. 58. ותמלוך אתה אדוני לבדך על כל מעשיך. בהר ציון משכן כבודך, ובירושלים עיר קודשך. ככתוב בדברי קודשך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי עיר ציון, לדור ודור. הללויה. קדוש אתה ונורא שמך, ואין אלוה מבלעדיך, ככתוב, ויקבע אדוני צבאות במשפט, והאל הקדוש נקדש בצדקה. ברוך אתה אדוני המלך הקדוש. We continue privately through page 78. I'm sorry, on page 60. We turn to page 60.
אתה בחרתנו מכל העמים, אהבת אותנו ורצית בנו, ורוממתנו מכל הלשונות, וקידשתנו במצוותיך, וקרבתנו מלכנו לעבודתך, ושמך הגדול והקדוש עלינו קראת.
Now continue privately through page 79. So if you're still praying, I invite you to continue. I'm reading on page 79, the prayer at the bottom of the page. It's a prayer for peace, but this year this prayer for peace in the midst of Am Yisrael, in the midst of our people, seems to be especially important. So we'll read this prayer together, or you can follow along as I read it, and then we'll sing on page 78. Eternal source and soul of peace, send your peace into the midst of Am Yisrael, your people. Let it heal our rifts and soothe the bitterness of intolerance. Let it overcome distrust, isolation, and rivalry. May your peace flow in every stream of Judaism. May it inspire solidarity, uniting us as one people. Let peace grow and increase, and let it shape the lives of all human beings. Let there be nothing but peace, no hatred or jealousy, no victories that bring suffering and loss to people and nations, only love and peace, strong, profound, and true. We yearn for love that knits us together. We yearn for the wisdom of community, shared knowledge, empathy, and trust. May the words that we speak and the meditations of our hearts open pathways of truth and understanding.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata melech Adon lecho hashalom. Ki ata melech Adon lecho hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Besefer Chaim beracha v'shalom u'farnasa tova nizacher v'nikatev lefanecha anachnu v'chol amecha beit Yisrael l'chaim tovim Uleshalom, Baruch atah Adonai, Osei HaShalom.
On page 81, we close this part of our service with a prayer for peace.
Osei Shalom, Bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imeru Amen. Osei Shalom, Bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imeru Amen. Osei Shalom Bimromav, Hu shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru. Amen.
So, those of you who have been following the articles about AI, or maybe those of you who work with it on your own, know that a lot of it works on something called a large language model. Large language models are programs that are fed thousands and thousands of texts on a given subject, and after ingesting a gazillion words, and by recognizing certain patterns in the language, they then have the ability to predict which words are likely to follow other words and in what context, giving them an uncanny ability to reproduce human speech, and some even say thought. Of course, we also know that these large language models also have the ability to hallucinate, to make stuff up, stuff that sounds reasonable but is utter nonsense, and I love that. And I know there's a sermon in there somewhere, but I don't have it yet. Maybe next year. But tonight, I am going to suggest that these large language models that can help us with so many tasks of our life are not of much use when it comes to the concerns that bring us here tonight: self-awareness, reflection, and the desire for change. And I had this confirmed by a friend who told me that her rabbi consulted a chat box and asked it, "Can you do teshuvah?" And the chat box said, "No." At least it was honest on that one. But in fact, I'm going to make the case for what I call a small language model, very small, as you will soon see. Because even if AI had a record of all the words I'd ever read, and even the screenplay for all the films I've ever seen, and the lyrics to all the songs I've ever listened to, it would never be able to predict which of those words were the most important to me. And I want to illustrate this by sharing a teaching from our tradition. It's a midrash, a speculative teaching, that interjects itself into a moment in the book of Numbers at almost the end of 40 years in which Moses and Aaron have led the people together through many struggles and crises. And then one day, God says to Moses, "Aaron is going to die tomorrow." The text is very brief. It says, God says to Moses, "Take Aaron and Eleazar his son and bring them up to Mount Hor, and take off his garments and put them on his son, and Aaron will die there." Imagine what a difficult moment this must be for Moses. He's already lost his sister Miriam, and now he's told that he'll lose his elder brother Aaron, who has been his partner and support for 40 years. And since the text is silent, as it usually is, about what is going on in Moses' mind, the rabbis try to imagine themselves into the situation. How will he find the words to tell his brother that it is his time to die? Several weeks ago, I shared with some of you on a Friday night a midrash from Yalkut Shimoni, which goes like this. And if you want later, you can find it. If you want to follow it now, it's on page 2 of our supplement. Sorry, on page 2. The Yalkut Shimoni is a medieval collection of teachings and midrashim. It's from the Ashkenazi world. It replicates and reproduces some teachings from the Talmud, from other midrashim, but it also has some teachings that are unique and unusual only to it. The teaching goes like this. The Holy One said to Moses, "Do me a kindness and tell Aaron of his death, for I am embarrassed to tell him." Rabbi Huna said in the name of Rabbi Tanchum ben Chia, what did Moses do? He rose very early in the morning and he went to Aaron's dwelling. and began to call out, "Aaron, my brother, Aaron, my brother." Aaron came down to him and said, "What's the matter that you have risen so early and come here today?" Moses replied, "I was pondering a matter in the Torah last night, and it was very difficult for me. So I rose up early and I came to you." Aaron said, "And what is this word of Torah?" Moses said, "I don't exactly remember, but I do know that it was in the book of Genesis. Come, let's read it." So they took down the book of Genesis and, starting at the beginning, read through it, section by section. And about each act of creation, Aaron said, "How wonderfully, how beautifully God created." When they reached the story of the creation of Adam, Moses said, "What will you say about Adam, who brought death into the world?" But Aaron said, "Moses, my brother, don't speak that way about this matter. Mustn't we all accept the decree of God? You see how Adam and Eve were created and how they had joy in the Garden of Eden and they ate from the tree. And then also it was said to them, 'For dust you are, and to dust you shall return.' After all that praise, they also came to that." Moses said, "And I, who ruled over the ministering angels, and you who stopped the plague, will our end also be like this? How many more years do we have to live? 20? Aaron said, "Oh, less than that." Moses said, 10 years? Aaron said, "Oh, less than that." And so Moses began counting down the years, and then the months, and then the days, until he came to the day of Aaron's death. Immediately Aaron's bones felt it, and he began to tremble. Aaron said, "Perhaps this verse is meant for me?" Moses says, "Yes." Aaron said, "My heart is void within me, and the fear of death has fallen upon me." Moses said, "But do you accept the verdict?" Aaron said, "Yes." Moses said, "Then let us go together up Mount Hor." Why do I like this story so much? First of all, I love the opening line. God says, "Do me a kindness and you tell Aaron, for I am embarrassed," bosh in the Hebrew, perhaps reticent to tell him. What chutzpah! Even though it's God who's responsible for the way the world is, including the inconvenient truth of death. When it comes to the really hard stuff in the world, God leaves the task for us. It falls to human beings to find a way to rise to these difficult situations with a certain nobility. Secondly, the story embodies the Jewish romance with texts, and especially sacred texts. Moses, when he thinks about how to break the news to his brother, his first instinct is to use the sacred text that they both love. I guess the rabbis ask us to imagine that each of them has a Hertz Pentateuch in their tent that they just could bring down and take it out. But the story also shows Moses as a good counselor, modeling perhaps the compassionate way in which brothers or friends can broach difficult topics with one another. And Moses gently finds a way to bring the conversation closer and closer to the difficult subject, inviting Aaron to express his own feelings. And finally, there's the remarkable reaction of Aaron. Moses' questions have prepared the ground, perhaps even opened the heart, such that suddenly at this moment, words that Aaron has seen over and over again suddenly speak to him directly. Shema bishvili hapasuk hazeh. Is this verse meant for me? Like Aaron and Moses, we all know there will come such a moment for each of us. In just a few moments, or in last week, we noted the words, who by water, who by fire. But on other days, we prefer not to dwell on this. But today, we are invited to try and see our lives from a higher view, what those lives would look like in God's sight. And what I mean by those words is, what would our life look like from the perspective of the holy and the good, in the light of what it is that we're able to do and have not done, to live up to the potential of the unique and holy soul that each one of us has. What are the places that have been tarnished by our deeds, where there is still a possibility of repair while there is still time? The story that's written in our book of life, what would we want to change or edit before the final line? My teacher, Norman Cohen, who introduced me to the study of midrash when I was a rabbinical student 30 years ago, and whose insights into the Torah have nurtured me for many years, wrote the following about midrash, which is what I just read, a uniquely Jewish way of engaging with the sacred text. He writes that the rabbis understood the Torah as a place where all human experience and knowledge is woven into its fabric. New and contemporary interpretations of the text are part of the original intent, implicitly part of what was revealed at Mount Sinai. And revelation does not occur just once and never again, but every reader in every generation can draw meaning from that biblical text. And the meaning does not lie in a meaning that is sealed within the text, but rather in the fact that it elicits what would have been sealed within the reader. What is hidden in the text is the reader's most essential and intimate life, his or her longings, fears, doubts, questions, and struggles, which are uncovered when we become one with the text. Now, most of us did not grow up with exposure to this way of reading Torah, or with that familiarity with it that can facilitate this kind of an intense encounter. And it's also true that so much of midrash depends on hearing the associations and the resonances of the Hebrew language itself, which is a closed book to so many of us. But still, I want to suggest that in our own experience, there is a kind of analog to this kind of engaged reading. The Bible and our sacred texts contain poetry and prose and even short, very terse stories. But the novel, as we know it today, was a form that was not familiar to them. And what happens in the mind and the heart as we read a novel is of a totally different quality than what happens in the mind when we read a Facebook post or a newspaper article or a blog. The novel engages us in a drawn-out process of discovery and identification with characters, and a good one brings us along at a leisurely pace, twisting and turning, stimulating our curiosity. I know that every time I pause at the end of a chapter or lay the book down on my lap to take a break from reading, I'm wondering about the details that have just been disclosed and how they have changed the way I understand what is happening. They elicit something from me, not just curiosity, but perhaps distress or worry or discomfort or distance or recognition. And by observing and noticing my own reactions, often helps me clarify my beliefs and assumptions about things. And sometimes it happens as we read that I might come upon one of those short phrases, an epigram, a turn of phrase, a sentence or two stated in just the right way that suddenly speaks to me in the most powerful way, as if I have been addressed personally. Another reader might not even notice it, because what happens in those moments is a meeting between the words, the text, and an individual reader with all the particulars of an individual life. Norman Cohen's book about midrash is organized around the psychologist Erik Erikson's theory of stages of development. He posited that people move through 8 different stages in their life, and at each stage we have tensions between positive and negative forces, which must be resolved if we are to grow. He suggests that in childhood, for example, we're negotiating the boundary between trust and mistrust. In early adulthood, between intimacy and isolation. In maturity, between generativity and stagnation. And in old age, between integrity and despair. And in the process of midrash, and also in the process of engaged reading, every reader encounters the text or the verse with their whole experience and with the particular tensions that are alive for them in this moment of their lives. So there can be a moment of insight that goes deeper than just appreciation of the turn of phrase, which is why we can read the same stories from the Bible over and over again, and they can speak to us in a way that they have not spoken before, just like Aaron and Moses reading those words from Genesis. Perhaps this verse was meant for me. What I cannot do is predict when a word or a phrase will jump out and grab me. It always takes me by surprise. But as the Zen saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So tonight, as we enter into these 24 hours of Yom Kippur, I want to invite us to be open to the possibility of those moments of encounter and inspiration. We won't be reading any novels together, but the prayer book is full of words and moving poems and short words of reflection. Now, maybe we don't have a lot of closeness to this large volume full of so many words, but we will be speaking words of confession as we do every year. And we'll be speaking or singing prayers, some of which do express our deepest longings and our requests. So I want to invite us to do whatever we need to do to be in this Yom Kippur space with an attitude of curiosity and openness, to be in search mode, to allow us to encounter a feeling or a thought or a premonition or a clue that will help us move forward to change direction and maybe to resolve some questions in our life. Perhaps this would be a good place to remind ourselves about how we need to think about this big book that we have in front of us. And unlike the English word prayer, which comes from the root precarius, which means to ask something from someone, for example, as the result of being in a precarious situation, the Hebrew word for prayer, tefillah, comes from the root to judge or to evaluate. And the verb for prayer, lehitpalel, properly means to evaluate oneself. And I think we might find the prayer book more helpful if we did not always feel that we had to wrestle with the words that we're speaking. If we could regard these words as prompts that might make us curious or uncomfortable or thoughtful, rather than as propositions, as declarations of what we believe. Perhaps in these many thousands of words, thousands that will be said or read, there will be something that we see about which we can say, perhaps this verse was meant for me. And since I know how hard it can be to try and get some inner space when people are talking all around you, I'm going to take advantage of the silence that we have right now and invite us to take a moment or two to see if there are some words inside of us, words of regret, words of hope, words of understanding, of resolve, of acceptance. So I'll invite you to sit up a little bit more elegantly in your chairs. And I'm going to sing a few words from a verse from the Song of Songs that goes like this. Ani yashena, I sleep, v'libi er, but my heart is awake. Kol dodi dofek, the voice of my beloved is knocking. Pitchili, open to me. And then I want to drop a few questions into the silence. Ani yashena v'libi er, kol dodi dofek pitchili. Ani yashena v'libi bier, veli bier, kol dodi dofek pitrili. If my heart could speak to me now, what would it say? Is there something unfinished in my life? Is there something I need to do? Are there words I need to speak or write to someone? Ani yeshena veli bier, kol dodi dofek pitrili. Ani yeshena veli bier, kol dodi dofek pitrili. Martin Buber quotes one of the Hasidic rabbis who commented on the unusual expression that we just said in the V'ahavta, the first chapter of the Shema Yisrael prayer. It goes, V'hayu hadvarim ha'ela, these words which I speak to you, al levavecha, on your heart. And why does it say on your heart and not in your heart? Because, he said, the heart is a hard muscle. It is not always open. But when the heart opens, the words that are on the heart can penetrate into the heart. We're about to do the vidui, the communal confession of sin. And the way that we do it is all together. We're all going to speak the same words using the first person plural, we. And the reason I think that we do it all together is the same reason why I asked you to read the prayer for those who need to eat, so that a person doesn't feel ashamed of speaking the truth, so that we all speak the same words that allows the one for whom these words are the most important to speak them, and to speak them so that they can hear them, but without shame. So the spiritual practice for each of us in these next few moments will be to recognize and affirm which of these verses are meant for me. To find in these words the ones that hurt the most when we think about them. Or maybe just to use that phrase as a genuine question to ask as we read about these sins. Perhaps this is meant for me. In order to make a small opening that we can choose to enter when we are ready. And I hope that in these next 24 hours, our hearts, tenderized by song and prayer, can be open to such moments of insight and supported by the great promise and premise of this day that we do not have to run away from our shortcomings, from our pain, our hurts, and our wounds, but rather to take seriously the promise of forgiveness, and then we can face them a little more honestly, so that a moment of clarity can put us on a different path that might lead us to a more wholesome future. Ani yeshena veli bier, kol dodi dofek pitrili. Ani yeshena v'li bir kol dodi dofek pitchili. So I invite us to turn to page 83. And we're going to do the first confession of sin. I'll ask us to rise in a moment. And the way we do it here together, because not everyone is familiar with the Hebrew, is we'll chant them verse by verse, Hebrew, English, Hebrew, English. Each one of us can chant in the language that means the most to us. The custom is to strike the heart. Strike the heart. And we're going to do this a few times over the course of the next 24 hours. So this first one normally is just kind of a knock knock. Kind of like anybody in there. But if you wish, a friend of mine or a rabbi colleague of mine, Scott Hausman Weiss from Houston, he posted that watching the recent episodes of the show The Bear. How many of you watched The Bear? Okay, a couple of us did. The lead character describes one of the ways that the cooking staff would diffuse tension and disputes in the middle of a shift, of which, as we saw, there are plenty. And with tensions rising in the workplace, he describes how someone would perform the American Sign Language for I'm sorry, which is a fist rubbing one's upper chest in a circular motion. Let's just try that. Fist rubbing in a circular motion. So tonight, or during the whole Yom Kippur, if you wish to say I'm sorry with your hands, you may do so. If you wish just to tap, that would be okay. If you want to knock, just a gentle. Certainly tonight. We're getting used to these sins. We're encountering them again, and we want to see just what's in there. So we rise on page 82. And we preface this list of sins from A to Z, or Aleph to Tet to Taf, with a beautiful melody. Ashamnu,
We are guilty.
Bagadnu,
We betray.
Gazalnu,
We steal.
Dibarnu Dofi,
We scorn.
Evinu,
We act perversely.
Behir Shanu,
We are cruel.
Zadnu,
We scheme.
Hamasnu,
We are violent.
Tafalnu Sheker,
We slander.
Ya'atznu Ra,
We devise evil.
Kizavnu,
We lie.
Latznu,
We ridicule.
Maradnu,
We disobey.
Niatznu,
We abuse.
Sararnu,
We defy.
Avinu,
We corrupt.
Pashanu,
We commit crimes.
Sararnu,
We are hostile.
Kishinu Ore,
We are stubborn.
Rashanu,
We are immoral.
Shichatnu,
We kill.
Tiavnu,
We spoil.
Ta'in,
We go astray.
Tietanu,
We lead others astray.
Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 On page 86, we do a longer confession, all beginning with the words Al chet shechatanu fanecha, on the sin we have sinned against you. And again, we'll do the Hebrew, and then just the phrase in the English. For example, deliberately and by mistake, through words of our mouths. I just want to mention that one of the sins that is in this catalog of sins is described as sexual immorality. And I know that some will hear in this phrase the voice of religion, not affirming the way that they are and the way that they love. So when we speak these words, let's just think about them in terms of the way I think they were meant, which means that we need to strive for holiness and respect and love in our relationships, whatever they be or whoever they be with. Page 86.
Deliberately and by mistake, through the words of our mouth, by hardening our hearts, through careless speech, through lies and deceit, through gossip and rumor, by judging others unfairly, through disrespect to parents and teachers, through insincere apology, by mistreating a friend or neighbor, through violence and abuse, through dishonesty in business, Elohai selicho, selach lanu, mechalanu, kaper lanu.
Page 88.
Openly and secretly, by losing self-control, through sexual immorality, through consumption of food and drink, by giving into our hostile impulses, through greed and exploitation, through cynicism and scorn, through arrogant behavior, by hating without cause, through offensive speech, with a slanderous tongue, through a selfish or petty spirit,
Elohai selicho, selach lanu, mechalanu, kaper lanu, Salah lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu. You may be seated. And we turn to page 98. Hoping that our words are heard, we sing this first verse, Shema Kolenu, Chus v'rachem aleinu, take pity, have compassion upon us. Kabel berachamim uv'ratzon, and in mercy and love, receive our prayer. Page 98.
Shema Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu. Shema Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hus berachem aleinu, vekabel berachamim uberatzon et tefilatenu. Shema Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu. Shema Eloheinu, Adonai Eloheinu.
Page 106, this beautiful piyut poem, a liturgical poem. Ki anu amecha, we sing, for we are your people. V'ata Eloheinu, and you are God. This poem with so many metaphors of relationship, flock and shepherd, work and maker, beloved and lover. So we sing this to a beautiful melody, and we hope that we'll all sing it together. Ki anu amecha ve'ata Eloheinu, anu banecha ve'ata Avinu, anu avadecha ve'ata Adoneinu, anu kehalecha ve'ata chelkeinu, anu nachalatecha ve'ata goraleinu, anu tzonecha ve'ata ro'einu, anu charmecha ve'ata notreinu, anu peulatecha ve'ata yotzreinu, anu rayatecha ve'ata adoneinu, anu segulatecha ve'ata kroveinu. Turning now to page 114. Having established this relationship, we come to pray the Avinu Malkeinu. These words of petition and asking and yearning. I want to invite up Alan Zimmerman and Rebecca Claff to open the ark. And when the ark is open, the congregation will rise. And we do the Avinu Malkeinu, the first 8 verses in the Hebrew together. And then from the last line at the bottom of page 114 in the English. And then we come back to the Hebrew. So the congregation will rise.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol aleinu, ve'alol aleinu, ve'tapeinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei dever, ve'cherev ve'rahal, me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei kol tzar, u'mastin me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kadvenu b'sefer chayim tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, Kadesh aleinu shana tova. Avinu Malkeinu, Malei yadeinu, Malei yadeinu, mi birkotecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, let our eyes behold the dawn of redemption. Avinu Malkeinu, we pray, do not turn us away from you with nothing. Avinu Malkeinu, welcome our prayer with love, accept and embrace it. Avinu Malkeinu, act towards us as befits your name. Avinu Malkeinu, act for your sake, if not for ours. Avinu Malkeinu, you alone are our sovereign. Avinu Malkeinu, let the gates of heaven be open to our prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice. Treat us with tender compassion.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu v'hanenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu v'hanenu, ki ein banu ma'asim. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, ve'oshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu v'hanenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu v'hanenu, ki ein banu ma'asim. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Aseh imanu, tzedaka v'chesed, ve'oshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chanenu v'hanenu.
remain standing for Aleinu on page 116.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tei kidula liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, velo samanu kimishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gohor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu orim u'mishtabim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu.
Page 119.
V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai v'melech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
You may be seated as the ark is closed. So in just a moment, we're going to begin to conclude with the Mourner's Kaddish. This holy night concludes with memory, our last thoughts always with those we have lost. We may miss them especially tonight, yearning for their presence at our side. The service we shared once was theirs. They spoke and sang the ancient words. They prayed, repented, and yearned for better lives as we have done. What was good and beautiful in their lives once gave us joy and now inspires us to reach higher. The knowledge that they loved us deeply brings comfort to our hearts. So we light candles of remembrance and gratitude, and we speak the timeless truth, Zichronam Livracha. May their memories be a blessing. This week in this congregation, we are marking yahrzeit for Michael Bender, Jacob Brenner, Jorge Davilo Carpio, Marion Gross, Florence Kornblatt, Edward Kravitz, Louis Grass Kerr, Samuel Linden, Bahia Mizrahi, Samuel Newman, Gerald Norton, Gerald Rice, Rose Solares, Albert Waldman, Barbara Ward, Jerome Angert, June Omansky, Louis Rosenberg. And we're still observing Shiva or Shloshim periods of mourning for Michael Alexander, father of Rabbi Dan, and for Beverly Tesler Gary, mother of Cecilia Rosenberg. So at this time, anybody who is observing a period of mourning or anyone who wishes to join the mourners may rise for the Mourner's Kaddish on page 122. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei l'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru, Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam leolmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudusha, Le'ela u'le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to those who are bereaved. We all say, Amen. At this point, I want to invite our President, Charlotte Crystal, to speak some words of greeting from here.
Thank you. Good Yontef. My name is Charlotte Crystal, and I'm the new president of Congregation Beth Israel's Board of Directors. I was honored to be called to serve a congregation that over many years has been extraordinarily fortunate in the quality of its people, its clergy, administrative staff, teachers, lay leaders, and members. I'd like to welcome you to Congregation Beth Israel's Erev Yom Kippur service. Welcome to everyone, those who are with us here in person and those who are joining us online. Our high holiday services require a lot of behind-the-scenes work, so there are a number of people I'd like to thank for making these services possible. First, our extraordinary office staff at CBI. Thanks go to Anita Bowles, Raya Razuzut, Shelby Apple, Lucas Holdorf, without which we wouldn't be projecting online, Nancy Kluwer, and Sydney Wirtz, as well as Kelvin Jones and his team, who help us move everything from CBI to Trinity Church and back. Thanks also go to Sandy Shustek, Chair, and all of the members of our Ritual Practice Committee who year after year make our high holiday services possible. Thanks also to the longtime members of CBI and for our past and present leadership. Thank you for all you've done to ensure that our congregation has thrived. We wouldn't be here today without you. Thanks also to our new members. Some Jewish congregations are aging and shrinking, but thanks to you, we're growing and growing younger. Thank you for joining CBI and for being here with us tonight. Special thanks go to our service leaders, Senior Rabbi Tom Goodhertz, and our talented Chazan, George Cohen. Finally, thanks to Trinity Presbyterian Church and its staff. Thank you for sharing your sacred space with us again this year. CBI has planned more than a dozen events during the high holiday season. Excuse me. You should receive both a postcard and an email with a detailed schedule of events. Please take a look and consider attending a new-to-you service this year, along with the services you traditionally attend. Tomorrow morning, our family service will begin at 9, and our main morning service will start right after that at 10:15. Both will be held here in Trinity's main sanctuary, and I have to say the family service is a joyous event which is open to everyone. After the services tomorrow morning, please join us tomorrow afternoon for several services. The Yizkor service in CBI's main sanctuary, in person and on YouTube at 4 o'clock, followed at 5 by a Torah study session in Omansky Hall in person, and after that at 5:45 by the Mincha and Nila services in CBI's main sanctuary, both in person and on YouTube. A light break the fast will follow. Actually, one person I forgot to thank tonight is Beth Epstein for her beautiful cello for tonight's service. I wrote this before I knew she was going to be playing the cello. So, again, thank you for joining us here tonight. It's wonderful to be part of Charlottesville's thriving Jewish community. May be sealed in the book of life. Gemar Chatima Tova.
So Sandy is indicating that following the final blessing, we'd like the people in these two sections, the ones who I can see, right? You guys, please take your prayer books and bring them over here in this direction. Sandy's got a bin. We need to use these chairs and this space tomorrow for the family service. So you'll help us a lot if you can go out this direction and bring your prayer books with you and put them there. So, on page 628, if you want or need the words, we've just begun to open the gates. This long day, this night and this day. So we sing, Pitchu li sha'arei tzedek, open to me, open to us, the gates of righteousness. We will enter and enter them. Pitchu li sha'arei tzedek, avo avamodeya. Pitchu li sha'arei tzedek, avo avamodeya. Pitchu li sha'arei tzedek, avo avamodeya. L'shana tova techatemu. May you be sealed in the book of life for a happy new year. Gamar tov and Tzom Kol. Have an easy fast. Good Yom Tov.
I want to like not be helpful.